You are a stain on this family. Kelsey, get that filth off my dinner table. My father didn't look at the ultrasound photo I just revealed. He looked at me with pure, unadulterated disgust. The expensive crystal glasses didn't even tremble. But my entire world did. We don't do mistakes in this house, he said, his voice cutting through the Christmas carols like a knife. If you keep it, you are disowned. Leave now, and don't ever come back. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I stood up, left a single, terrifyingly heavy gift box on the table, and walked out into the snow, forever. I'm Kelsey Grant, and I'm 29 years old. Before I tell you what was inside that box, and how it eventually destroyed their entire empire, drop a comment, and let me know where you're watching from, and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this story travels. The drive from my parents' Connecticut estate to the Hudson Valley usually takes 3 hours. That night, I made it in 2.5. Tearing through the darkness as if the devil himself were chasing me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. My hands were steady on the wheel. My eyes dry and focused on the road ahead. Inside, though, I felt like a building that had just been imploded, dusty, hollow, and structurally unsound. The disownment wasn't a surprise. Not really. It was just the final punctuation mark on a sentence that had been writing itself for 29 years. My parents, Angela and Jesse, weren't just parents. They were a brand. Everything in our lives was curated for public consumption. From the color of the Christmas tree ornaments to the colleges we attended. My pregnancy unplanned, unmarried, and messy didn't fit the aesthetic. So, I had to go. By the time I crossed the bridge into the Hudson Valley, a thick, white fog had rolled in off the river. It swallowed the road, erasing the world behind me. It felt appropriate. I was driving into nothingness. I turned off the main road onto a gravel driveway that wound its way up a steep hill. The iron gates were rusted open. Ghosts of a grander time. At the top of the hill, looming out of the mist, like a Gothic cathedral, stood the Sterling estate. It was a place of legends in our family, spoken of only in hushed, fearful tones. My grandfather, Arthur Sterling, lived here. He was a myth, a monster, a recluse who had cut ties with my mother 30 years ago. They said he was mad. They said he was cruel. But tonight, he was my only option. I parked my car in front of the massive oak doors and killed the engine. The silence of the place was heavy, pressing against my ears. I grabbed the single bag I had packed, a change of clothes, my laptop, and a few essentials, and walked up the stone steps. I knocked. The sound echoed through the house, deep and resonant. A minute passed. Then 2. I was about to turn around, to accept that I was truly alone in the world, when the heavy door creaked open. Arthur Sterling stood there. He was older than the few photos I'd seen. His face lined like a roadmap of a difficult life. But his eyes were sharp, intelligent, and terrifyingly clear. He leaned on a cane, wearing a velvet smoking jacket that had seen better decades. He looked at me, then at the fog behind me, then back at me. He didn't ask who I was. He knew. "You look like you've just buried a body," he said, his voice gravelly and low. I replied, my voice steady, my own. He studied me for a long moment, assessing me like I was a rare book he was considering buying. Then he stepped back, opening the door wider. "Come in." Then, the dead have no business standing in the cold. Inside, the house smelled of old paper, wood smoke, and time. It was a fortress of solitude, filled with shadows and silence. He led me to a library that was larger than my entire apartment back in the city. Floor-to-ceiling shelves were packed with books, files, and boxes. It looked less like a home and more like an archive of a forgotten civilization. "Why are you here, Kelsey?" he asked, pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. He didn't offer me one. He just set it down on a side table. "I need a job," I said, "and a place to stay, and I need to disappear." "Disappear?" He raised an eyebrow. "From whom those peacocks you call parents? They disowned me tonight. Christmas Eve." He let out a short, bark-like laugh. "Of course they did. Angela never could handle anything that wasn't scripted. and Jesse follows her like a lost puppy. He took a sip of his drink. So, they threw you out, and you came to the monster on the hill. I came to the only person they're afraid of. He smiled, then. A thin, wintry expression. Smart girl. I like that. He walked over to a massive desk covered in papers and picked up a file. I don't need a granddaughter. Kelsey, I have no use for sentimentality. But I do need an archivist. Someone to organize 50 years of business records, correspondence, and secrets. It's tedious, dusty work. It requires silence and discretion. I can be silent, I said. I've been practicing my whole life. He looked at me. Really looked at me. Piercing through the layers of trauma and exhaustion. If you stay here, he said quietly, Kelsey Grant ceases to exist. That girl walked out of a Christmas dinner and vanished into the fog. If you stay, you become someone else. Someone stronger. Someone who doesn't need their approval. Who do I become? I asked. He gestured to the room. To the thousands of secrets buried in the paper. You become Destiny, my archivist. And if you do this job well, I will give you the world. I looked at the dusty shelves, the dark corners, the formidable old man offering me a lifeline wrapped in a challenge. I thought of my father's cold eyes, my mother's frozen hand. I thought of the child growing inside me, who deserved a mother who was a fortress, not a doormat. Deal, I said. My name is Destiny. He nodded, satisfied. Good. Your room is on the 3rd floor. Start tomorrow at dawn. The dust waits for no one. That night, in a 4-poster bed that smelled of lavender and mothballs, I took out my phone. I scrolled through the contacts. Mom, Dad, my sister, my friends, everyone who belonged to the life of Kelsey Grant. One by one, I deleted them. Then I went to the settings and changed my number. As I lay in the dark, listening to the wind howl around the stone walls of the estate, I felt a strange, cold peace settle over me. Kelsey was gone. She had died at a dinner table in Connecticut. Destiny was just waking up, and she had work to do. 5 years is a long time to remain invisible. While my parents, Angela and Jesse, were busy launching their new reality show, The Gold Coast, and selling a curated version of their lives to millions of viewers. I was deep in the bowels of the Hudson estate, digitizing a century of secrets. I didn't just organize Arthur's files, I absorbed them. I learned the anatomy of a hostile takeover before I learned how to properly brew his tea. I memorized the leverage points of media conglomerates while dusting the library shelves. My grandfather didn't treat me like a returning prodigal child. He treated me like an apprentice in a very dangerous trade. Information is the only currency that doesn't devaluate, he told me, one rainy Tuesday, watching me scan a stack of legal correspondence from the 80s. Money rots. Real estate crumbles. But a secret kept in the dark only grows more powerful. I lived by those words. I watched my parents' show sometimes. Late at night, I saw them cry fake tears over their estranged daughter who had run off to find herself. They monetized my absence. They turned my trauma into a plot point for season 2. I didn't get angry. I just cataloged it. I downloaded every clip, every interview, every lie, and filed them away in the estate's server under a folder simply marked liars. As the years passed, Arthur grew frailer. The cane was replaced by a wheelchair, the velvet smoking jacket by heavy wool blankets. But his mind remained sharp as a diamond cutter. We spent our evenings by the fire, reviewing the day's work. He taught me how to read a balance sheet like a map of enemy territory. He showed me how to spot a lie in a deposition by the spacing of the font. When the end finally came, it wasn't dramatic. It was just a quiet cessation of machinery. He called me into his room 3 days before he died. He looked small in the massive bed, his breathing shallow. Open the bottom drawer of the nightstand, he whispered. I did. Inside was a single, heavy box made of black steel. It wasn't labeled with a business merger or a tax year. It was labeled Kelsey. My breath hitched. What is this? I told you I have no use for sentimentality, Arthur rasped, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. But I have great use for evidence. I opened the box. It wasn't filled with birthday cards or baby photos. It was filled with surveillance logs, transcripts. There were transcripts of every phone call my parents had made to their publicist about me. There were logs of every time they had legally maneuvered to keep me off their financial disclosures. There were audio tapes, dozens of them. I watched, he said softly. For 20 years, I watched them starve you of affection. I watched them turn you into a prop. Why didn't you stop them? I asked, my voice trembling for the first time in years. Why didn't you come get me sooner? He turned his head slowly to look at me. Because a rescue would have made you weak. You needed to survive the cold to become who you are now. I didn't want a victim. Destiny. I wanted a successor. He pointed a shaking hand at the box. That is not a scrapbook. That is your armor. When they come for you, and they will come, you do not fight them with tears. You fight them with this. He died 48 hours later. I sat by his bedside as the silence finally claimed the house. I didn't cry. I closed his eyes, straightened his blanket, and walked to the window to look out at the fog. Kelsey Grant would have been devastated. She would have been an orphan, alone and frightened. But Destiny was calm. She walked to the desk, picked up the phone, and dialed the family attorney. Initiate the protocol, I said. He's gone. Let the sharks in. My grandfather's funeral was less a memorial and more a red carpet event for the grieving elite. The press lined the driveway of the Hudson estate, 3 deep, their telephoto lenses snapping like hungry jaws. I stood at the front of the Great Hall, dressed in a black suit that cost more than my parents' entire wardrobe for season 1. I wasn't weeping. I stood, with my hands clasped behind my back, watching the circus arrive. Angela and Jesse were the last to show up. Naturally, they stepped out of a black SUV, wearing oversized sunglasses and expressions of carefully rehearsed devastation. A camera crew from the Gold Coast trailed them, capturing every brave step they took toward the manor they hadn't visited in 30 years. They walked right past me. My mother actually brushed my arm as she passed, murmuring, a distracted, "Excuse me," to what she assumed was a member of the event staff. She didn't recognize her own daughter. To be fair, Kelsey Grant had been soft, round-faced, and eager to please. Destiny was sharp angles, severe hair, and cold silence. They took their seats in the front row, dabbing dry eyes with lace handkerchiefs whenever the cameras panned their way. When the service ended, the room cleared of the hangers-on, leaving only the family and the legal team. We gathered in the library, the very room where I had deleted my old life 5 years ago. The family attorney, Mr. Sterling's longtime confidant, sat at the desk. He didn't look at my parents. He opened a leather binder. Arthur Sterling's estate is valued at approximately $3.2 billion, he began. My father's eyes lit up. I could see him doing the math, calculating how many seasons of the show he could fund, how many yachts he could buy. My mother squeezed his hand, her knuckles white. He leaves the following bequests, the lawyer continued. To the staff, generous pensions. To his charitable foundations, 20% of the liquid assets. He paused. The air in the room grew thin. The remainder of the estate, including the media conglomerate, the real estate portfolio, and the physical archives, is left in its entirety to his sole beneficiary. My parents leaned forward, ready to receive their prize. To his archivist and successor, Destiny. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of oxygen leaving a room. Who, my father asked, his voice cracking. Who the hell is Destiny? The lawyer gestured to where I stood by the fireplace. Ms. Destiny has managed Mr. Sterling's affairs for the past 5 years. She is his legal heir. My mother turned slowly to look at me. She squinted, trying to place the face. The assistant. You left $3 billion to the help. I am not the help, I said, my voice low and even. I am the one who stayed. Something in my voice triggered a memory. My mother's eyes went wide. She stood up, her fingers shaking as she pointed at me. Kelsey, she whispered. Then, her shock curdled into something uglier. You little snake. My name is Destiny, I corrected. This is fraud, my father shouted, slamming his hand on the antique desk. This is undue influence. You manipulated a senile old man. You stole our inheritance. He wasn't senile, I said, He was disappointed. There's a difference. My mother's face twisted. She looked at the cameras, which were still rolling in the corner. Arthur had ordered them to stay. She realized she had an audience. She realized she needed a narrative. She didn't embrace me. She didn't ask how I'd been. She turned to the lawyer, her voice rising to a theatrical shriek. This woman is an imposter. Our daughter Kelsey went missing 5 years ago. We've been searching for her. We've been grieving her. I watched her performance with clinical detachment. This isn't Kelsey, she declared, looking straight into the camera lens. This is a con artist who stole a missing girl's identity to scam a dying man. She isn't our daughter. She's a predator. I looked at them, these people who had erased me over a dinner of prime rib, now trying to rewrite history to suit their greed. They were claiming they lost me, when in reality, they had thrown me away. Get out of my house, I said. It's not your house, my father screamed. We'll sue you for every penny. We'll prove you're a fraud. You'll rot in prison for this. As security escorted them out, screaming threats and playing the victim for the cameras, I felt a strange calm. They thought this was a lawsuit. They didn't realize it was an autopsy. And I held the scalpel. The lawsuit hit the news cycle like a bomb. Missing Iris or calculated, come the headlines screamed. Reality TV stars, battle imposter for billion-dollar empire. My parents didn't just sue me. They launched a full-scale media offensive. They went on every talk show that would have them. I sat in the silent library of the estate, watching them perform their grief on a 60-inch screen. We just want our daughter back. My mother sobbed on Good Morning America, dabbing her eyes with a tissue that matched her dress. This woman, this destiny. She brainwashed my father-in-law. She kept us away. She made him believe we abandoned him. My father went on television and lied with practiced grief. We tried to visit, he said. Security turned us away. She isolated him. It's elder abuse. And she's using our missing daughter's name. It's sick. The public believed every word. Hashtags exploded. Death threats flooded the estate voicemail. Strangers camped outside the gates, calling me a witch. I turned off the TV. I gave no interviews. I released no statement. Instead, I sat at my grandfather's desk and opened a file labeled Narcissistic Injury. Arthur had explained it years ago. My parents weren't evil. They were wounded. They had built their lives on the fantasy that they were the stars. And I was meant to be a prop. When I walked away, I shattered the mirror. Their rage wasn't about money. It was existential. To survive, they had to turn me into the villain. That made them dangerous. I called Judge Harrison. He laughed when he answered. They're drowning, he said. Their filing reads like a bad novel. Good, I replied. I'm ready to end it. We agreed on 2 moves, a full forensic audit of their finances, and a formal warning. 48 hours to retract their statement and drop the lawsuit, or I would open the sealed 1,998 box. They won't stop, Harrison warned. Let them think they're winning, I said. It makes the fall longer. The deposition took place on the 42nd floor of a Manhattan tower. My parents arrived in costume, Angela barefaced and grieving, Jesse in a somber suit from his old TV finale. Even here, they were performing. Their lawyer sneered. If you're really Kelsey Grant, prove it. DNA. A scar. Anything. I don't need a DNA test, I said calmly. Harrison finally spoke. He slid a black folder across the table to my mother. Open it. Inside was a single document, a 1,998 petition for annulment of adoption and surrender of parental rights. They had tried to give me back when I was 5 so a television pilot wouldn't be inconvenienced by a child. They hadn't filed it, only because the show was canceled. But they had signed it. Under oath. This is perjury, Harrison said. And fraud. Their narrative collapsed in silence. Then I opened my laptop. They had claimed the Christmas dinner was a hallucination, that I was unstable, that they never disowned me. Arthur had kept more than paper. He had kept sound. The recording played. My grandfather narrated the night clinically until the moment my father's voice rang out. Clear and undeniable. You are not part of this family anymore. You are out of the will. The room broke. Their lawyer packed his bag. He knew. I slid 1 page across the table. Not a settlement. A surrender. Drop the lawsuit. Admit the fraud. Sign away your life story to the archive. Or this goes public in 10 minutes. Jesse signed with a shaking hand. The lawsuit was dismissed the next morning. Their show was canceled by week's end. The audit revealed they had been insolvent for years. They vanished into obscurity, silenced by the archives. Days later, I stood on the balcony as the fog burned away. In the gardens below, my son laughed, chasing a dog through the grass. I hadn't lost a family that Christmas Eve. I had survived one. The gate plaque was already ordered. Not Sterling Manor. The Sterling Archive for Truth. For the first time, I wasn't recording someone else's history. I was writing my own. They wanted a show. I gave them history.